It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Tonight, we have Michelle McAllister with us. So excited to have her with us. She has so much knowledge and she's going to share some of it with us tonight. So I'll keep my remarks short so Michelle can have her time, and I'll hand it right over to you, Michelle.
Oh, I love that, Sam. Short and to the point. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Michelle McAllister. I am the creator and founder of Landlord in Stilettos. I'll get in a little bit into what that's about in just a second, but I'm so excited to be here. And I'm going to be speaking on 5 mistakes that landlords make and how you can avoid them. So if you are recently into purchasing real estate and you own some property and you want to manage them yourself, then this class will be a fantastic addition to some of the concepts that you might already be learning. So again, for the agenda, I'm just going to quickly go into a little bit about me and who I am. We'll jump right into the content, and then I'll open it up for any Q&A that you might have. So as I mentioned before, I'm the creator of a community called Landlord in Stilettos on Instagram. And essentially my community helps people create multiple streams of income through real estate. I purchased my first property when I was 23 years old and been purchasing property ever since then. And I manage it myself. And I said, you know what? I want to help others and teach others how to do the same. So that's where that concept came about. I am a full-time business owner. I come to you with over 22 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. And in 2000, what year was it? Was it 2019? 2019, I quit my job to be a full-time entrepreneur. I'm also the author of 3 books. One is a motivational book for young women called 22 Life Principles for the Ultimate Woman. And then I have also some ebooks, Thriving While 9 to 5ing, and then also How to Not Suck at Being a Landlord. So many of the concepts that I'll discuss today are going to be in my last ebook. But for the most part, you know, a lot of the information that I'll touch on today are mistakes that I have made and mistakes that I've witnessed other investors make that we don't want you to make. And as I mentioned before, I've been a real estate investor and a landlord for almost 20 years. So I'm showing my age here, Sam, showing my age. It's all good though. Okay, so let's get into it. 5 mistakes that landlords make and how you can avoid them. So I like to start off all of my workshops with learning goals, because if you don't know what we're going to be walking away from learning, then I will have wasted your time, and I certainly don't want to do that. So after today's session, I'm going to be able to give you some strategies that will shield you against some common mistakes that lots of new investors make in terms of property management skills. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of being a DIY landlord. And DIY just means do-it-yourself landlord. So some of the pros, right? Obviously, all of the cash flow, it belongs to you. And that's always a great thing, right? My favorite part about being a DIY landlord that I think a lot of people tend to overlook is that you actually get to learn critical business skills. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I want to get the property and I just want to, get a property manager. I don't want to deal with the tenants. And I often find that they are skirting away from actually developing some critical business skills that can help you not only be a better investor, but a better businesswoman or businessman, and just kind of up your game, level up a little bit. Another pro is that no one is going to care for your property like you. It doesn't matter how much you pay them. It doesn't matter, if they're your family, it's your property. And for the most part, you are going to be the one that's going to benefit long-term from holding this property. So no one's going to take care of your baby like you will. It will enhance your communication skills. And I think that this is something that all of us need in life. It will help us in our careers. It can help us in our marriages and our friendships and our relationships. Having enhanced communication skills, being a landlord forces you to learn how to communicate with people. Because essentially, when you rent out your property, more than likely, it's going to be to a complete stranger. And you're going to learn how to have to communicate with them, talk with them, negotiate with them, have uncomfortable conversations, and it really can help you as a landlord. You also get to develop business relationships, right? So your tenants, obviously they're your tenants and there's a professional relationship there, but there are oftentimes tenants that I have that have become almost, I wouldn't say friends because I definitely keep a line there, but we've developed really good business relationships. And I see Sam shaking his head, and that is so critical, right? Because there are times where you might not be able to get to an emergency. And if you have a really good tenant that you have a great business relationship with, they might say, hey, listen, Jasmine, I know you're out of town. I can take care of this. I'll have the plumber come in, I'll fix it. Or, you know, if you trust them to do that. But it's really good to develop those types of relationships, especially if you're going to be managing your properties on your own. And then obviously you have total control. So if you have a huge portfolio of rental properties, being a DIY landlord might not be the best fit for you because, you know, you might not have the systems in place to be able to handle sort of the influx of calls or demands that might come in. But if you have a manageable portfolio, you can totally do this. It's definitely doable and you get to control the situation. So here are some cons. You know, you have to establish your own network of people. And so, I mean, this is a con and a pro because at the same time, you should be establishing those networks anyway. So you should already be having in line who you're going to call for your, you know, who's your electrician going to be, who's your plumber going to be, who's your drywall guy going to be, who's your handyman going to be. These are things that you should have in the back of your Rolodex with or without a property manager. But for the most part, if you have a property manager, then they should come with an established network of people to help you manage your property. Landlord-tenant relationships can be stressful at times, right? So I won't sing all unicorns and praises to being a DIY landlord. There are times when, like I mentioned before, you might have some really stressful conversations and interactions with people. And sometimes some people just don't want to deal with that. You also have to stay on top of your legal issues and your state laws. This is really, really critical. And it's often an overlooked step that many new investors tend to overlook. You have to stay on top of what's going on in your city, what's happening in your state, and even in the country, right? Like, so we've just seen what happened with COVID and all of these different mandates that came down, and they were different on a state level, but being a landlord sort of forces you to be in the know of what's happening from a legal perspective. Obviously, you know, a con is handling maintenance requests, right? So when you have a property management company, you know, they will take care of that. And then also not having access to geographical rental trends. That's often really important when you are a landlord. It's good to just have that information sort of at your disposal. Property managers do have that information for you, but if you're a DIY landlord, you may have to go and do some legwork and find that information out on your own, but it's not impossible. So as a landlord, you're just going to wear a lot of hats, right? So you're going to have to manage all of these different hats here. So you'll see oftentimes you may act as a salesperson. You're going to be showing your property. There's a little bit of salesiness that comes into that because, you know, you might be showing a property where there are other rentals in that area that are up for rent as well. And if you are competing for high quality tenants, it now comes down to the property and the property manager or the owner. So you will kind of sell your property a little bit. A detective, right? So you need to make sure that, for example, when someone submits an application to you, and we'll get into this a little bit later on in the presentation, but what are those holes that you are looking for to determine whether or not this candidate is going to be the right candidate to live in your property, right? So if they told you on the phone that they've been working at their last job for 5 years, but yet when you get their application, you see that they've only been there for a year and a half, that's a lie, right? And so these are things that you have to pay attention to and you can't ignore. Oftentimes we fall in love with candidates because we think they're perfect. We like them, we've met them, they're great. But then something that they've said on the phone may not necessarily align with what's in their paperwork. That might be an honest mistake. But if there's a pattern, right? If there's a pattern of deception and or lies, those are things as a landlord that you're going to have to pick up on yourself. No one's going to be able to do that for you. And I also put on here, a counselor, a marketer, a negotiator. These are all different hats that you will wear, but they will all make you a better business person in the end. So it's nothing to run from. So avoiding these mistakes that I'm going to discuss with you today will help you, number one, get your time back. Right? Because time is a precious commodity. And that's why you're investing, I would imagine, in the first place. We're all out here trying to buy our freedom, right? Whether you work a 9-to-5 job or whether you are self-employed or you're an entrepreneur, you invest so you can get your time back. You also want to make sure that you're getting your cash flow, right? So you want time and you also want money. And so avoiding these mistakes are going to keep the dollars in your pockets. And then obviously just self-education is always going to be the key. Being in a part of a group like Sam's, having monthly conversations with people, making sure your network also consists of other landlords that you can have conversations with and bounce ideas off of. All of that is going to be really critical to your success in being a do-it-yourself landlord. So let's get into mistake number one. And I think you may have heard this before, but it bears mentioning. A lot of times new investors just do not treat their property like it's a business. So, once you own a property, you own a business. And I think that that is something that new investors have to make sure that they stay on top of. Namely, keeping an accounting of every single expense. You're going to have so many expenses over the course of a year that's going to come into play, and you need to make sure that you have a system in place. There's lots of software that you can use that can help you with that. If you're old school like me, I use an Excel spreadsheet. Even if you just get a folder and you keep something in your folder, making sure that you're keeping an eye out for your expenses is critical. Always put things in writing, agreements, conversations. I don't care what it is. It could be something as simple as, so I remember like maybe a couple months ago, I had a conversation with my tenant. I agreed for him to paint the walls a neutral gray. I trusted him. He's been living there for a long time. And it was a simple verbal conversation, but yet I follow it up with an email just saying, per our conversation, I've given you permission to blah, 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 blah. And so you would say, well, why would you do that? You had a conversation, you trust them. It's because everything should always be put in writing. I approach every conversation with a tenant as if it were to be displayed in front of a judge in a court of law. And I know that might sound dramatic, but you just never know when a interaction can go sour, or if there was a disagreement. God forbid he painted the walls neon green, right? And then I come in and I'm like, wait, we said gray. Oh no, I told you it was green. I have it in writing, right? So always document your conversations and put them in writing. Keep a database of your contacts. You'll be amazed at the people that you're going to meet on your journey, right? Like you'll be in Home Depot or Lowe's or your local hardware store. You'll come across people and you may not need them now, but you might need them in the future. So keep all business cards, keep all phone numbers, and make sure that you are, have an accounting of all of the networks that you're trying to build as you go about your investment journey. And network often to keep your database fresh. So obviously COVID kind of, took us back from having these face-to-face interactions with people, but now the virtual aspect of doing things is becoming the norm. So making sure that you're networking with people through social media, joining different forums, going online to different websites. Like I love Reddit. I'm a big Reddit fan. Anything you need, any question you have, you can just hop on there and ask someone. Make sure that you are refreshing your network and obviously protecting yourself and protecting your property.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.